Anna Kendrick is doing the rounds to promote her directorial debut movie right now. It's called Woman of the Hour. And in her press tour for this movie, she is making some creative choices. I'll call them that. She is using this as an opportunity not to necessarily talk about the movie itself, but to relate it back to her own personal experiences of having an abusive relationship and misogyny, which doesn't make me personally any more interested in watching the movie. It just makes me wonder why she's oversharing on a podcast about her ex-boyfriend.
Do you think that this is a unique marketing tactic that works specifically mostly with women? Because I know that this, first of all, this movie is not meant really to reach the male demographic. It seems like it's more inherently designed for the female audience, which is fine. But this type of marketing tactic seems perfectly in line with what the traditional modern woman actually wants, which is oversharing and in-depth discussion about the worst moments of one's life.
Well, that's why Call Her Daddy is the most popular podcast for women in the U.S. I should explain more about the context of this movie. Woman of the Hour follows the true story of a woman who won a dating contest with a man who turned out to be a serial killer. This centers around serial murderer and rapist Rodney Alcala, I believe it's pronounced.
Okay.
He actually appeared on and won the dating game in 1978. His prize, a date with the episode's bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw, never materialized because she found him too creepy. And after his appearance on the show, he killed at least 3 more women before he was finally caught. Anna Kendrick says, I was aware of the story in the way I have found out about 50% of the population to be aware of the story. Oh yeah, I heard about that. And really what we've heard is once upon a time, there was a very violent, dangerous murderer who went on dating game. But once I signed on to direct and got into some research and made tweaks, the fact that he went on the dating game is the least interesting part of the story. So instead of focusing on the serial killer himself, the point of the movie, she says, is to study the culture that allowed him to murder at will. That's what this says. It says they're avoiding salacious pitfalls of other true crime films while refusing to shy away from the horror of Rodney Alcala's acts and the culture that allowed him, despite numerous tips over many years, to murder at will. We live in a murder culture.
When they use that phraseology, the point is to implicate fault beyond just specific people.
Well, they're blaming a serial murderer on misogyny in very uncertain or very certain terms. They also rewrote the protagonist, Cheryl Bradshaw, to be a girl boss from the sound of it.
When she was not.
I mean, she was just a normal person. The subject matter might seem dark for Anna Kendrick, but she is the perfect fit to play a plucky Cheryl Bradshaw, a smart, hardworking actor struggling to prove herself and preserve her dignity amid the rampant misogyny of the 1970s. Part of joy and, yes, humor of the movie is watching Cheryl Bradshaw, who reluctantly appears on the game show in a bid to kickstart her acting career, flip the script on the sexist show host and reduce the macho bachelors into stammering man babies.
It's like, what's her name on that interview yesterday with Denzel Washington and Paul Mescal.
Thank you. So basically this serial murderer got away with killing women because everyone was sexist in the 1970s. Is that what we're supposed to believe? And aside from any of that, Anna Kendrick felt now was the appropriate time to go on the Call Her Daddy podcast and overshare about the 7-year-long abusive relationship she had that broke up in 2020. So she was with, allegedly, the rumor has it, she was with this TV producer / filmmaker, Ben Richardson, for 7 years, and their relationship ended in 2020. most people think that this is the abuser she is talking about in this interview.
Okay.
How long did that abusive relationship that you endured last?
It didn't follow the traditional pattern, which is kind of yet another reason why I was finding it really difficult to identify it and name it.
I'm waiting to hear about the movie.
Because I was like reading all the articles and going like, this doesn't look like some of it looks like how they're describing it, but not completely. So the relationship was 7 years. It was like an overnight switch. It came out of absolutely nowhere, but was built on this foundation of I had so much love and trust for that person. So I thought it had to be me. Like if one of us is crazy, it must be me. It was very, very difficult to actually go, no, I think this is him. I think this is his stuff. Because I turned my life completely upside down trying to fix whatever was wrong with me. I was just like, will someone just explain to me what's going on? There are even times when I talk about my situation where, as I'm saying it, I will go, am I making that up? Am I making everything up? I remember having a conversation with my therapist like a year after that relationship. She was talking about my ex, and she started to say something where she was like, well, you know, when you're dealing with a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I went, no, what if I'm the wolf? Like, what if it was me? Because I think that was the thing that I didn't expect, was how totally convinced he was of his own victimhood. And I thought, like, well, if he's being manipulative, I'll know it because, you know, I'll smell the bullshit. Like, I'll smell that this is kind of a performance that he's putting on. But I don't think he was putting on a performance. I think he genuinely believed that I was, like, torturing him. He told me one day I was terrorizing him because I was just crying because I couldn't pretend that things were fine anymore. And I just started crying, and he screamed in my face, you're terrorizing me. Sometimes it was so emotional. It was like, Anna, I'm begging you, like, you're ruining everything you're making. Like, it was so real for him that it was like, am I doing something terrible?
Right.
I think they're really convinced that you're doing something terrible to them.
Right.
So like the pain place is real, and that can be very, very misleading and convincing.
Okay.
So after watching that clip of her interview with Alex Cooper, does that tell you anything about the movie? Does that make you want to watch the movie?
See, here's the thing. I don't know if it matters to the female audience that it doesn't, right? What I think it does is it develops a relationship, albeit a parasocial one, between her and the women watching the podcast, where they now feel closer to her and are probably more ingratiated to the idea of consuming her work. So when the movie does come up on Netflix, they'll remember the discussion that she had, and perhaps it makes them more inclined to see if she was able to bring all of that emotion into that role, or I guess into this directing role.
She's also trying to communicate, like, I have a personal connection to the subject matter of this movie, which is violence against women, which I honestly feel like does trivialize the subject matter of the movie, even though she claims it's not doing that. And
Well,
she's
she says
also
that because she says that, look, she didn't take a salary.
She's emphasized that she didn't even know this movie would get purchased. She didn't know if this movie would ever make any money. But now that Netflix has purchased the movie, she has vowed to give away all of her proceeds to anti-domestic violence charities. So let's take a look at her explanation for that.
Here we go.
Film festival for someone to buy movies. And that is where, you know, eventually Netflix bought the movie. But it wasn't until like the week before TIFF that I thought, oh, the movie's gonna make money. Like I was just so, because you know, because I went from being like, let me know when the movie happens, to like, oh God, I'm responsible for this. And then I was just making the movie, and we just barely made the deadline to get into TIFF. And then it was like, oh, there's like money gonna be exchanging hands. And yeah, like I sort of asked myself the question of like, do you feel gross about this? And I did. And so, so I'm not making money off of the movie. The
the money is going to, or has gone to, RAINN and to the National Center for Victims of Violent Crime, which was a charity that Matt Murphy recommended to me.
And we've done work with both of them. They're
It's interesting. It's on a podcast called Crime Junkie. Would she be judgmental of the podcast making money off of talking about these things?
Right. There's so much
I guess
true
she may
crime
take
content out there.
Which is uniquely driven by women.
Mm-hmm. There's a fascination there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is why women are afraid to walk alone at night.
And not because all of those true crime enjoyers have personally experienced something that connects them to those victims. Not at all. It's like a sick, voyeuristic obsession that some of them have. I just don't understand why, first of all, your movie promo is a platform for your personal story, which no one asked about. And also your movie is a platform for activism.
This is a product of more and more women getting involved in the filmmaking side of cinema, right? So men making art for different reasons. Activism was probably less of a focus, especially this type of activism would be less of a focus than it would be for women. So now that more and more women are getting jobs as producers, more and more women are taking the helm as directors and, head writers and things like that, they're going to want to tell the stories that they feel are important. And there comes a whole bunch of other societal problems when it comes to making that type of art. Certainly, people have been critical of horror movies or the trivialization of violence in cinema for a very, very long time. That's nothing new. But women are going to have different sensibilities when it comes to stuff like this. And in conjunction with that, marketing to women will have vastly different sensibilities. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of in-studio discussions, perhaps with Netflix or her manager, about how to effectively market something like this so that it doesn't simultaneously come off as exploitative, but also something that connects with a uniquely female audience.
Yeah, I think that men, if they're in the position of being a director, they're making this movie for the sake of the movie because they're singularly focused, and that's a tendency that men have. And women would be more likely to think, I'm making this movie for
something else,
this cause, because we need to talk about this and we need to raise awareness about this. I mean, actually, I'll take that back. The director of It Ends With Us, I forget his name, was saying the exact same shit. It was like,
Justin Baldoni.
He was saying, I'm making this movie to raise awareness about domestic violence. Yeah. And he was kind of pitting himself against Blake Lively, the star of the movie, who was making it about herself, which is actually what ended up bringing people to go see your movie.
She focused on the types of, on less serious ways in which women would be drawn to the theaters.
Wear florals to the movie. Yeah.
Wear florals to my movie about domestic abuse.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.